Hello everyone. I would like to recommend some of the best books for the structure of magic and creation of magic. I want to talk about first The Trick Brain from Darin Martineau. Okay, this is a great book that I highly recommend to any magician because not only does it have the structure of magic, it has many great ways and techniques, one of which actually inspired me. The build a cigarette and the method for the build a cigarette in there is what inspired my creation of my effect called the half a miracle, which is my borrowed bill to the sealed half and half container, which I have. You can see on my website. So I recommend these things. Okay, the Fitzky trilogy. Magic by Misdirection. This is an absolutely incredible book on misdirection. This is another must-have because misdirection, is also known as direction of attention, is a very powerful principle in our art. The next is Showmanship for Magicians, another part of the Fitzky trilogy, which is an excellent book on routining the presentation and showmanship elements of your magic. Okay. Next book can be found in the public domain, as it is a part of the Devant and Neville Maskelyne's Our Magic. They had an article called The Art in Magic, which they made. Originally came out in 1911. And this book, which is called Maskelyne on the Performance of Magic, is one of my favorite books. And it talks about the different artistic points, such as the real secrets of magic, the 3 degrees in art. I refer to a lot of these things in my book, The SURREALLUSION System. If you haven't got that book, I really think if you're having any kind of trouble creating magic or structuring magic, you need to read it. I remember when I first got started in magic, and moving further along, when I first went to Gary Darwin's Magic Club and I met my mentor Allan Ackerman, I think I was about 15 years old, and I remember that, you know, he didn't just become my mentor. I mean, I had to earn it. I remember he first said, you know, buy my book, and I want to say the same thing to you. If you'd like me to mentor you in magic, not just buy my book, check out my SURREALLUSION system and my membership site, because there's a lot of information in there, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or advanced magician. Okay, this book talks also about surprise and repetition, speed and presentation, patter, climax, surprise and repetition, justification, unity, consistency, importance of artistic principles, attitude, stage manner, and personality. Those are some of the things. This is highly recommended. Actually, I believe it is in the public domain, or you can go look for Our Magic, which this is a part of that, from the essays. Just because it's older, don't think that it's not good, because see, these principles are timeless. The only thing that really changes is well, there's certain things that change. You know, effect, method, and presentation are the pillars, but you need to look at the 10 master keys of the SURREALLUSION system, which is in my book. And, you know, really, it's just, you know, the props and in the environment and the context, and there's other elements that we'll talk more about. Okay, speaking of public domain, this is in the public domain. You're not going to believe this. This is one of the most powerful books. It's from John Booth, and it's the John Booth Classics. Okay, and the John Booth Classics, particularly, I want to recommend to our students is Forging Ahead in Magic. Forging Ahead in Magic talks about building your magic act. Okay, essential components of your act, closing strongly. He talks about, you know, why you should use productions particularly if you're working on a stage act to close with. But I think it applies to close-up because it's more conducive to stronger reactions and stronger applause when you have productions at the end. Not that you can't end with a vanish, I'm not trying to say that, but particularly in stage magic he talks about certain things. But it also talks about creating a setting, it talks about the power of music, you know, etiquettes, the care of hands, face, and clothes. He recommends certain things which are still applicable, you know. Read magazines like Esquire to find out, you know, designs, work with designers. See, he talks about a lot of things that, see, magicians think they can do everything themselves, and that's one of the things he talks about in here. That's one of the problems. If you can't afford to get a director for your act, let's say you're working on a stage act, you need to get a consultant. If you can't afford a consultant, then you need to get a friend or a mentor or advice. See, and he also says something in here. Don't go to your friends. Your friends are going to be nice to you and tell you that you're good, even if you're not good. You need to get an unbiased opinion, and that is, you need to find out really where you're at in your magic. Whether you're trying to become a professional performer, an amateur, a creator, whatever your goal is, that doesn't matter. What matters is who you're going to get your consultations and your advice on your magic. He talks about developing of your style, developing your voice in magic, personality and showmanship, the development of personality. He talks about some business things. Even though this is old, they still apply, such as getting publicity, engaging the press agents, publicity stunts. Even though this is older, there's still a lot of treasures in here, I'm telling you. Because, you see, the principles of magic are timeless. And that's the thing, you know, principles are timeless. Now, I'm going to be recommending a lot of different books, okay? I'm going to be making other videos. In this video I want to cover a lot of the essentials. Henning Nelm's Magic and Showmanship. This is an excellent, excellent book, okay? And I'll talk about some of the things in this book that it's going to teach you, just not going through everything, but some things that I've highlighted here. Talks about the measure of meaning within magic, okay? Making the most with assistance. He talks a lot about the structure, the dramatic structure, okay? In here he talks about misdirection, controlling attention, consistency in characterization. There's a lot of things that are great in this book. You know, this book is originally, it was written in 1969, but I remember that this book was actually just released when Fielding West was growing up, and he actually got to get like the first copy of this book, and he talks about that in one of his videos. But this is really good, okay? Magic and Showmanship, Handbook for Conjurers by Henning Nelms, okay? Now, I want to kind of jump back to the other book of John Booth Classics, Forging Ahead in Magic, where he talks about a couple things that are really, really powerful. He talks about Cardini and how he used to do a mechanical act with like props and other things, and it didn't work for him until he found out that his niche, he found his niche, which was in the manipulation, and particularly pantomime and certain things that he realized in his silent act, that when you work on your facial gestures, because, you know, like an actor, you know, you want to memorize your lines, and, you know, if you're doing a silent act, then you obviously it's become more choreography, but it just goes to show you, if you're not a natural comedian and you don't have the gift of the gab and all of that, then you want to go a different route. You know, sometimes it's a silent act, but you don't want to just do, you know, 24 different ways of showing the hands empty. And these are some of the things that John Booth talks about, and I think it's very, very powerful, and I think that every magician needs to read these books because it will make you a better magician. Now, we're going to talk about this book right here. If you're trying to find yourself as a magician, This is called Find the Stuff That's You by Chris Carey, and I like this book a lot. I love a lot of the things in this book. I'm just going to skim over a few of the things because some people recently asked me, you know, how can I get more shows? Well, in this book he talks a lot about that, but he talks about, you know, finding the stuff that's you, meaning finding your style and finding your character and finding your features of your magic. I really like the testing 1, 2, 3 in here where he asks you questions, and it's really cool. He says, you know, some of the questions he's, you know, just to briefly, do you like Chinese red colored props, black, flesh colored? It's kind of like a rhetorical question. It's kind of like, you know, the sage asking a question as a magician. Do you like dealer items or do you like sleight of hand? Now, not to say one is good or bad. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And you need to get some of these books because this book is so powerful, because what it does is it breaks down the art so well, because he'll take you through a series of these questions and it will really kind of trick you because you think it's one thing and it's really something else. It's to gauge your professionalism, your proficiency, and to see if you're a consummate professional or consummate magician, because what it does is it shows you where you're at in your magic, because the way he does it is really, really cool. And then in the back of the book, Discovering Yourself, he takes you through a personality test and finding your personality and style. And this is really, really powerful because, you know, the personality test will help you to discover, you know, yourself and with your problems and your challenges you're having in developing your character. And so that alone, just the tests and that personality test alone is worth it, but that's not all in this book. A lot of this was taken from stuff he had previously in the Lincoln Ring, the Genie, and the Magic Manuscript. So what he's done is he's compiled these into this, and this is not a really too old book. It's from 1989, but he talks about, you know, everything from how to publicize yourself to marketing. He talks about, you know, he takes you through the tests. I just really, really like it because, you know, it helps you take a look at yourself and what your goals are, and helps you to find the stuff that's you, find the magic that's you, instead of trying to be someone else. And then he takes you through a lot of professional things like working with microphones and a lot of troubleshooting things, a lot of professional things. It's really focused on how to become a professional magician, but there's a lot of great knowledge in there as well. Next book, which I really love, Strong Magic, okay, by Darin Ortiz. Darin Ortiz is really, he's one of our modern masters. I really love his work. I love all of his books. This is a lot of theory, okay? It's not a book of effects, but it's a book, if you're trying to create your magic, you need to understand the theories of magic, and you need to understand the structure of magic. Talks a lot about the layers of conviction, talks a lot about the meaning of magic, situational meaning, and the functions of the character. Takes you through audience testing, time element, style, unity, using variety, the opener, the build, the closer. Another powerful book. Another thing, jumping back to this book, Find the Stuff That's You, I just want to say there was some things I had marked in here that I wanted to share. He talks about content, context, and contrast. So basically what he's saying here is he's saying, let's say you're going with the storyline as the direction and you're considering scripting in your act. Okay, the next thing has to do with the what. What you do is important as how you do it. The context is a part of this, is as important as the context. Okay, then he talks about how to do things to fit into the context and the overall view and mood of your show. Are you consistent, with your aims and objectives? Then he talks about another layer, which is contrast. And he talks about, if you mix, yellow and blue, don't make green, because depending on if you're an artist, how much you mix can make different shades of the color. And so how will that apply to your show? The different hues and tints or shading of the dimension of your magic act, whether you're doing comedy or serious. It also has to do with that contrast, which is another thing directors call breathing space. You can't just do action, action, action. You have to break it up. Okay, and then he talks about control, different elements of control of the audience, whether they be environment or other things. So these books are great. I'm saving my favorite for last year, but this is one of my next favorite books, which is called Magic and Meaning by Eugene Berger and Robert Neal. And this, you can see I have it right here, autographed from Eugene Berger, which is cool. This is another one of my favorite books. Why? Because he'll take a simple thing like a card effect. Why do you do a card effect? You have to know why, okay? And that's why he compares like different types of routines to, like, say, ace cutting and things that are more interesting, because you have to hold their interest. That's what it's all about. It talks about some of the stories and origins of magic. It talks about tricksters versus real jokers. He talks about, are card tricks card magic? Awareness of move merges the magic. It's like the difference between literal demonstration and symbolic demonstration. He talks about these things in here. The different types of magics. The magical experience. He talks about, something from Max Maven. Are magicians afraid of magic? You're not going to create the moment and then not let them enjoy it. You're not going to run from that moment. Okay. One of my all-time favorite books, and as a former professional, and I consider myself a creator of magic and a teacher of magic, and that's what some of my goals are. This is one of my most go-to books, and I think it's one of the best of all time. If I was deserted on an island and I could only have one book with me, this would be the book. And it is Neo-Magic Artistry by S.H. Sharp. Okay, and why do I love this book so much? Because S.H. Sharp really breaks down the art of magic to the nth degree. I mean, he talks about conjuring as a fine art. He talks about the grades of art. You see, you can tell that he's read these. By reading this book, you can tell that he's read the classics that we're talking about, because he's basically building on them. Where in Our Magic by Devant and Neville Maskelyne, they talk about the different degrees of magic. He talks about the grades of magic. See, he's worded it differently, but I can see where he's been influenced. He doesn't really say that in here. I mean, sometimes he does, but I know where he's gotten a lot of his ideas. I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying he's definitely been influenced by people like Devant, because he was from England and they were too, maybe, possibly, probably. But this book really, really breaks it down. Because if you don't know what your goal is, if you're just a beginner magician, I would recommend this book. And some people will say, that's crazy. There's no tricks in there. Magic is not about the tricks. If you take all the tricks away, what is magic about? Magic is about creating wonder, astonishment. It's about creating these magical moments that will hopefully stay with our audiences, forever. Because really, when you think about it, what are most magicians doing? They're looking for that one trick. that dealer's item. Oh, you need to take yourself out of that. Take yourself out of that equation. Stop buying dealer's items. And some people will say, why? I like these cool little gizmos and gadgets. I stopped buying dealer's items long ago. And some of you may say, oh, why? I like these things. There's a lot of great magic. But you have to understand something. Do you want to be an innovator or an imitator? That's what I ask you. That's what I challenge you. And if you want to be an innovator, you need to read the books that are going to show you how to innovate. And you need to break away. It's not to say you can't learn anything from that. Yes, but the pioneers like Ed Marlowe, they left a legacy. Why? Because they saw bigger. They saw that techniques are limited and principles are unlimited. Okay. Now, it talks about the Conjurers Classified. I want you to start by reading page 37. Okay, to find out who you are as a magician and all the different Conjurers Classified. You know, from inventor, originator. I don't need to go through them all. In my book I go through a lot of these things. I quote a lot of these things in here. Because I don't just have my books and they don't collect dust on the shelf. No, the exact opposite. I read these books. I read these books over and over again. Why? Because they're going to inspire me. They're going to inspire us to forge ahead in magic. Now, he talks about surprise, suspense, repetition, and transition. You see, if you do, for example, the ambitious card, okay? I'm just going to give you some examples here. If you do the ambitious card and the card is rising to the top over and over again, or if you do the card to pocket with a repeat version, what happens is the first time they're surprised, this is psychologically what's going on. The second time, maybe not as surprised, maybe they're surprised. The third time, okay, now they're watching for the method. Now they're in a different place because you see, they're going to say, you know, you fooled me once, you're not fooled me twice, the old saying. So they're actually looking for your method. They're not going to say they are. They're not going to say that, but they're going to try and figure you out. And magic is not just about fooling the audience, but that's an important part of it. Because see, magic is about entertainment, but it's also about art. Anybody, okay, on anybody can do a dealer's item. You know what I'm trying to say? So repetition has to be with a surprise element. That's why, let's say you do a card to pocket, okay, then now all of a sudden the whole deck goes to the pocket and there's only one card over here. This is good because it added the surprise element. And that's what repetition does. It sets up the audience. It preconditions them for your element and your climax for your surprise finale. You always want to finish your routine, whether it's close-up or stage, with your best, quote unquote, your best, your strongest, and most original piece of magic. Why? Because that's the impression that you want to put onto your audience. That you're not someone that just pulls a rabbit out of a hat and does the same old stuff. Dealer's items. You do something that's unique and different. So I would invite you to go and get 50 free magic videos on my website and go check out my products and my book, SURREALLUSION System, which I've taken so much research and development and placed it into. Have a great day.